Well, I'm going to branch out and do something a little controversial on New Year's Day here in 2026, and I'm going to talk about the Hebrew language. Now, I'm going to turn off the comments because I don't want a lot of hate and different things on here, and I will equally speak about the Arabic language at some point. I don't know if it'll be today, but it will be soon. And the thing is, I like the study of languages. Okay, now, yes, I might study a language for a religious purpose. If I do, that's my business. But it doesn't have to be your business if that's not what you believe. Okay, also, this does not align me with any politics. Okay, because even if I embrace Judaism in the United States, um, Jews are all over the map on their politics and things people don't understand. They're not necessarily connected directly to Israel. Some are, some aren't. And and so what is happening in Israel with the war and all this is not actually completely directly related to all Jews. So I'm just saying that. Now, yes, Israel is a Jewish home state for Jewish people. However, the more Orthodox actually were against the establishment of the state of Israel in the first place, and that's another story in history and a lot to tell. But we're not going to get into that right now. And my goal here is to talk about the language only. That's it. And I don't discriminate on languages. I'm learning Chinese. Does that mean I agree with everything with the Chinese government? No, but I like the Chinese language. So I have studied many rather controversial languages. If I were to take up Arabic today, does that mean that I agree with every Arabic-speaking nation? No, no. Does it mean I want to be Islamic? No, it doesn't. It means I'm studying a language. And so only once, I will tell you, only once have I not wanted to study a language because of politics. And this wasn't because of politics. This was because of what is called the Shoah, or the Holocaust. And I could not, for quite a few years, study German. And I couldn't because I held a grudge against the German people for what was done to the Jews in World War II. Now, I kind of got over it when I actually made some contact with people in Germany and found out that the nation of Germany is actually sorry about it and doesn't want to repeat it and doesn't want to go through all that again. The majority of people. Now, there are different, just like over here, there are some scary movements out there, and there are in Germany as well. And so I'm not going to say everything is peachy keen, wonderful, bowl of roses, anything like that. But overall, the state of Germany has had the stance of, we regret and we are very sorry about what happened in the Shoah, and has put many things, many laws and things in place to try to make sure that that was not ever repeated. And when I found that out, then I was able to start to learn some German. Actually, it is not one of my top languages yet, but I don't hold the people accountable, not all the people accountable for a bad political movement, which is what we have here too. We have what I consider a fascist movement going on here too. And so anyway, I'm not going to get into that either, but it could get pretty scary. And I'm praying it does not. I'm praying people get a handle on it before it gets as bad as Nazi Germany. But I would say it's gotten pretty bad. So you should never let your country do this. But anyway, like I can speak, I can't go out there single-handedly and change it all, but I can speak on here in different places and definitely say it doesn't have my approval. I want something done. I don't know. I'm not sure what all one person can do, but I think one person can do a lot. So, anyway, I'm going to talk about the Hebrew language. I'm not talking about the politics. I'm not talking about the war. I'm not talking about anything. And I will tell you, I've only had one real problem on Duolingo one time. And I had someone come on and say, don't learn Hebrew. And I turned them into Duolingo and said, look, I don't need this. And I blocked them because if there is a language out there, I want to learn it. You know, I don't learn every language, of course, because there are many, many other languages, but I try to get a good taste from a broad sampling. Let's just put it that way. So this is not about politics. This is not about any war. First of all, something to know about me is I hate war. I hate war with a passion. I don't like anybody going to war. I don't. If this country goes to war, I don't approve. I don't approve of war. I never approve of war. I never approve of people being idiots and fighting each other. So I don't approve of any war. So please don't hang that on me. And but I like the Hebrew language for my personal reasons and for religious reasons. But we are going to talk about the Hebrew language. So here we go. And I'll probably turn off the comments so you can't hate on me. You shouldn't anyway. And I'm hoping maybe that by talking about it, maybe some understanding will happen. Imagine that. So anyway, the Hebrew language has been around a long time. It's a very old language, and it's used among the Jewish people. It was a sacred language for a very long time. Now, some comparison can be drawn between Latin being a sacred language for the Catholic Church, although Latin is used in speech because I think that different I don't know for sure if they're using English or Latin now in councils and things like that, but at one time Latin was the language that they used, and they used it as a lingua franca, which means that many people spoke many languages, so it was a way to unite everybody in one language. Well, the Hebrew language was a sacred language for a long time, and it was considered sacred. I know I had, when I was studying Judaism, I had an individual, I believe he was from Russia, I'm not sure, who told me to pray in Hebrew whether I understood it or not, because God would understand it, because it's God's language. So that's how the people feel about it. It is a sacred language to them. But now Hebrew was revived for the state of Israel, and it was revived as a secular language eventually. But it had many phases and many steps in this happening. It is unique in how it has been revived for secular use. So there was a gentleman named Eliezer ben Yehuda. He was born in Lithuania. He was a Jewish person, and he was born January 7th, 1858. So that gives you some idea of the time period. Now, at this point, there was not a state of Israel yet, and he studied Hebrew, but he studied it as a sacred language to learn to pray in it. So pray in it, worship in it. And so the spoken language of the Jewish people in that area of the world was Yiddish. And interestingly enough, there are other spoken languages that were used among the Jewish people, notably Ladino. This was a fairly new one for me. I found out a few years ago, which is based a little bit more on Spanish. And it's kind of funny because knowing Spanish, I actually was able to pick up Ladino fairly well. So anyway, but I'm not fluent in it. Don't get that idea. So he moved to Palestine. At the time, it was Palestine. This is before the formation of the State of Israel. The area was called Palestine, and he moved in 1881, and it was ruled at that time by the Ottoman Empire. So he got a job teaching in the Alliance Israelite universal school, something like that. And so he was a teacher. But he felt very strongly that the people in the area that were Jewish should speak the Hebrew language. And he wanted to make it a spoken language like a regular spoken language. He wrote that the Hebrew language can live only if we revive the nation of reference. So he began to teach Hebrew to people. So this was previously just a sacred language. Now, as this continued, and there was more secularization of the Hebrew language, some more Orthodox rabbis did protest that it was like a sacrilege to what they considered a holy language. So there was a lot of debate. There was a lot that went into this. This is something that was over the years, and there are a lot of moving parts, a lot of things that happened in this. Hebrew, the language of Hebrew, is a Semitic language. So it is closely related to Aramaic, Arabic, and Maltese. And these are Semitic languages. And one of the things they have in common is a 3-consonant root for the formation of words. Now, I haven't gotten too much into actually studying that, but I've seen it and I know what they're talking about. It's supposed to help you learn the language. I haven't really gotten into this. I'm using Duolingo, and people laughed at me. When I went to the synagogues, people laughed at me for using Duolingo, but I understood quite a bit, so I don't think it's a total loss, but I probably should have. I have had another course in it, and I probably need other courses in it. So anyway, they began to revive. Eliezer ben Yehuda was a moving force, especially in the spoken. So basically, there were two movements. There was more a literary movement for written Hebrew in Eastern Europe, and then there was a revival of the spoken Hebrew in Palestine. But now, to make it a secular language that people use every single day, there had to be additions to it. So modern vocabulary, how would you say a spaceship? Like there would be no word for that when in an old historic language. So anyway, there's been a lot of work with the language. There's a lot of syntax and sounds that have come from Eastern Europe. Some of those languages, the German and Slavic languages and things like that. So then in the 1900s, the rift between the written language and the spoken language began to merge, basically. And they began to develop Hebrew as a modern spoken language, an everyday secular language. And then there were many writers that spoke up. Israel Wolfe Sperling translated Jules Verne's 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea and Journey to the Center of the Earth in Hebrew. And that was a little bit revolutionary. Devorah Barron is a woman writer. Now, there was some, I would call it misogynistic. People are not going to like me using that word, but there was some, the women weren't as educated and things like that. And so she really advanced the language for women because she was a woman writer, and she wrote about female topics in Hebrew, as far as relationships between men and women, the tensions between men and women, tensions over the generation, and female topics in Judaism. And so she made a lot of headway with the women. And there were many other writers. And for instance, I have a book called Eat, Pray, Love. And this was a movie. I rather liked the movie, kind of related to it. And I was able to order this book in Hebrew. And I do have it in Hebrew. I haven't read the whole thing, but I have read some of it. Um, so, and then Eliezer ben Yehuda also created the Ulpan. And the Ulpan is a training center for the Hebrew language. I understand some people, when they do Aliyah and they go to Israel, I think they go through that to give them like introduction, from what I've gathered. I don't know for sure if I'm right on that. So anyway, now we have a modern language that is just as modern as any other language, which is spoken secular Hebrew. And there is also still a sacred Hebrew that people pray in, and so it's not quite the same as the spoken modern Hebrew. And so it's quite an interesting study in the revival of a. It's not a dead language. It was not a dead language because it was being used in sacred form, but revival of an older language used only for the sacred and made into a modern secular language. So I hope that gives you some idea, and I'm going to put some links in that you may visit and learn a little bit more if you're interested. And again, I don't want any problems from this video. This is for information, and it is an interesting topic in the study of linguistics.